I wanted to do another tutorial showing some of the basic V-Ray materials, but this time I'm going to show some of the other materials besides just the V-Ray material. There's also, in this video, there's also V-Ray two-sided material, V-Ray light material, then the standard V-Ray material, but we're going to get a little more into glass and refractive settings, and also some subsurface scattering. So, first, I'm going to start with this basic scene here. See what it looks like. I have these spheres with a V-Ray light just going through it. What this is going to enable us to do is see how some of these materials act as light is going through them. For example, the V-Ray two-sided material is a very good material for making lampshades. So when you put a light inside of that material, it looks like a lampshade. It glows through. So we'll take a look at that in a minute, and we'll see the effect because this light is going through it. But first I'm just going to start with, again, with the standard V-Ray material. We'll take a look at some of the settings in here. So this first material I made, and I'll make it again so you can see how I did it, but it's just a basic chrome. And chrome is kind of the same no matter what render engine you're using. I know it's about the same in Mental Ray, it's about the same with using a standard material in Max. And really, what you have to keep in mind is that chrome doesn't really have much of a diffuse color, so you can set it to black. It's getting all of its color from its reflectivity. So to do chrome, you can just do it like this, set it almost completely white for reflectiveness. And if you want it to be a perfectly crisp chrome, then you can leave the reflective glossiness at 1. I'll set this to about 0.9 so that it has a little bit of a highlight. And of course you can always hit this button here to unlock the reflective glossiness and the highlight glossiness. So technically I could unlock this, make it perfectly reflective, but still make it show a little highlight by doing that. Typically I like to keep this locked though. It's more physically accurate. So I'm just going to leave that, well, I'll put it to 0.9 so we can see a little bit of highlight. Now, not normally with chrome, but with some reflective materials, I like to put fall-off maps here, especially with glass. And it kind of simulates a Fresnel reflection where it's more reflective on the sides as it goes to a sharper angle away from the viewer than it is if you're looking straight at it. So the way that I do that is put a basic fall-off in the reflectivity map, and then take and add a point. You can leave it just like this, but it's actually more accurate to put a little Bezier point in here and make it like that. So if you're looking straight at it, right here, it's not reflective, but as it goes around that sphere, it gets 100% reflective on the very edge. And sometimes I like to put it a little bit reflective in the front too, just like that. So that's not so much for chrome, but for glass or something like that, you could put that on there. And you'll see what that looks like here. Okay, but for chrome we're going to leave that off. There's not going to be any refraction for chrome. This is the nice thing about V-Ray materials, everything is very straightforward. So reflections here, refractions here. We don't need to mess with any of these other things. If we wanted to put some sort of reflection glossiness map on it, these maps are just going to be black and white, and they'll tell it, and white will be completely glossy like a mirror, and black will be completely dull. Just like every other kind of material and every other kind of map. So if we put something like this dent map on here, you'd see that now we have some variation going on in our reflection. So you can see in these spots, perfectly reflective, and in the black spots that it's creating, it's a very dull, kind of scratched up looking reflection. So that's kind of an interesting material. And that's just a procedural. What the nice thing about this is if you take this, if you put a kind of a scratch map, just a black and white map with a bunch of scratches going through it, and you put it as the reflection glossiness map, then you can get a really nice stainless, or kind of a brushed aluminum or brushed stainless steel looking material. All you'd have to do is turn down the reflection a little bit, and then put something to control the glossiness of that. But let's apply this chrome, just so we can kind of see how it looks. I'll do a quick little render of just that part. Okay, so right now the chrome looks pretty boring because there's nothing reflecting around it. But as we put some nicer materials over here, that'll reflect right there in that chrome. And you can see that it's reflecting a ground plane that isn't rendering. That's because I have it as a matte object. What would really show this off is a nice HDRI material. You'd see all the reflections of that environment showing in the chrome, but I don't have one of those here on this computer, so hopefully it'll look a little better as we go along, but that is an accurate chrome material. Next we'll take a look at a few of the settings of the V-Ray light material. We'll try to make something kind of like that. Just kind of a funky material showing what it can do. But V-Ray light materials are great for making things like neon lights. If you're getting down to the detail of making a light bulb inside of a light fixture, then you can put a light material on it. I use it for a lot of different things in architectural visualization. But anything that is self-illuminated for V-Ray, you use the V-Ray light material, which is actually not as cool as like a standard material where you just have a self-illumination setting inside of it. I actually like that a little bit better, but V-Ray does it like this, V-Ray light material. And you can also render standard materials and use the self-illumination of a standard material in V-Ray. So that's one other way to do it. But we're going to take a look at how to do it with the V-Ray light material. So let's try and recreate that material there. All we do is go to our material map browser. Let's see, I guess for some reason it shows up in the standard. V-Ray light materials. This just sets its intensity, and then you can set its color. You can also put any bitmap or any kind of map you want here. I think on this one I use the opacity there. So you could put a picture of something here. If this was like a lit up sign of some sort, you can put any kind of map there. Emit on light on backside. This is a problem you run into a lot if you're using just a plane to be self-illuminated. If the normal of that plane is facing the wrong direction, then it's going to show up black in your rendering. So usually it's pretty safe to just turn this on so that it's just emitting on both sides. And that's all that's doing. It's telling it to either just emit on the side that the normal is facing, or just to emit on both sides. For opacity, you can make it so that, and you know what, to show off the opacity a little better, why don't we just do a checker map, so we can see kind of what that does. That just makes it so that material can be only lit up in certain areas. So let's take a look at that. Okay, I fidgeted with this checker map a little bit, and you can see right here what it's doing, changing the opacity of that light. So this is solid light, this is see-through light material. can see it there when I turn on the checkers behind. So when you render that, I turned off the light going through because for this for this particular material we don't actually want to see that. And this is kind of what that looks like. And of course you can turn this up. We can put the cellular map like the one above it has, or I think that's a cellular map. Yeah, something like that. Show it on there. Let's map it a little different. Just put it to 1 and 1. Then we have something similar to what was above there. Kind of a funky material. One other thing about this is if you turn direct illumination on, then that basically becomes a mesh light. Just like when you create a V-Ray light and attach it to a mesh using that method right there, turning this direct light turns that ball into a mesh light essentially. Makes it exactly the same. When you turn that off, then this becomes like a global illumination emitting ball. So it looks different. Most of the time I'm using it like this, with this button turned off, because if I want some sort of funky mesh to be a light, I just use this method here, because then you have more control over what it's doing. All the same controls you would have over regular light. So typically I use this just like this. The next material we're going to look at is a V-Ray two-sided material. Let's turn this light back on back here so we can see what this light looks like as it goes through the two-sided material. Two-sided materials used for a couple different things, but mostly for lampshades or other things that I want to be translucent. And what it is you can put a material on both sides of an object, and you can tell it basically how translucent you want that material to be, so how much of the inside material is going to be showing out, or vice versa. And I wish I had some good bitmaps to slap on it of a lampshade or something, but I don't. But let's just set one up and you'll see kind of how it works. V-Ray two-sided material right there. We'll keep the old material. Now, the way it works is you basically take two regular standard V-Ray materials, or any kind of material you want, and put one as the front and one in the back. For light shades, actually, you only usually need one material. I only use one for that. So let's just take a look at what that will look like. And all we'll do is just put a bitmap in here. Just something random. Now, that's just a regular material, but it's inside of this V-Ray two-sided material. Now, translucency here, this color is going to tell it how translucent to be. So basically, how much of the back material is going to be showing through. Since we only have the front material on here, this is basically telling it how much light to show through. Let's just take a look at how this would render right now. This is what it looks like in our slot. But with that light going through it, you'll see that it's kind of self-illuminated and glowing a little. Okay, this right here is our two-sided material. You kind of see that it almost looks self-illuminated right now. But that's only because this light is going through there, and this is a translucent material, so the light is actually shining through the backside of that sphere there. Let me show you what it would look like without the light on. So there it is without the light. You see that it doesn't have that self-illumination quality, but if if this was a lampshade and you put a sphere light inside there, then it would glow like a lampshade does. And it even will get darker around the edges and things like that, depending on how you make your material. So let's go into this two-sided material a little bit deeper and see. So the translucency can be set up to tell it where to let light through and where not to. So that can be a similar to any other kind of transparency map you would use. Let's try and put a back material on here so we can see what that'll look like. And again, you can put any kind of material back there. Let's put another V-Ray material, put a different bitmap in it. Grab these tulips here. And now you'll see in our slot here, let's see, you can't really tell there. But if I change my translucency, okay, so now you can see both materials kind of. And the more you change this, so the less translucent it is, the more the front material is going to be showing. If you make it really translucent, then the back will be showing through a lot. So if we put this somewhere like this, and like I said, you can use this with just a front material and put a lampshade material on there of some sort, put a light behind it, and it's just about perfect. Let's render that just to give you an idea kind of what it's going to look like. There you see how that back material is showing through. It's kind of glowing through with the light. You can just see the front material a little bit. So that's a pretty translucent material. Again, I usually use these with just one material, and I could take some sort of canvas looking fabric, put it on there. It makes a perfect lampshade. Okay, let's look at glass just a little bit here, briefly. Glass is kind of like the chrome, where it really doesn't have any diffuse color. You can make that totally black. If you do have like a bottle green glass or something like that, then you can give the refraction a little bit of color, or you could give the diffuse a little bit of color. But I wouldn't recommend doing both, because then they can combine to make kind of some wacky looking materials that way. You can do them both, but it can be a little harder to control, and really you only need to do one to make the color the way you want it. So with glass, we'll just make this one diffuse color black. We'll take that fall off map that I was talking about before, because glass you kind of always want it to be like this. Just put that nice little curve on it. And you can see even in the front I'm leaving a little bit of reflection so that it's not totally black, because that doesn't usually look good in a rendering. But that's kind of how it looks right there. Pretty simple. The refraction obviously is going to be pretty high depending on your glass. So one thing that's important about glass is if say you're doing a house or a building of some sort and your glass is just a plane as opposed to having a model thickness to it. If it's just a plane, you'll probably want to change this to basically 1. So it looks like that. For some reason, if you change it to exactly 1, it displays funny like that. So I usually set it to 1.01, and then it displays fine. And it's essentially the same thing. This way, when you look through a plane of glass, and again, this is for applying to a plane as like a window that doesn't have any thickness. If you look through that and you have your index of refraction set high, then things are going to get really distorted through that glass. So you set it like this. However, if there is a thickness to your window, then I would leave it around 1.6, because then having that thickness makes the refraction correct as you look through that window. And actually, if your window has a thickness and you look at the edge of it, it'll look a lot more accurate, because the light is refracting differently as you look through the edge of the glass as opposed to straight on. And it gives, if you look at a plate of glass in real life, you'll see that on the edges it has more of like a green tint to it sometimes, or something like that. You can get that effect if you give your glass thickness in here and leave your index of refraction higher. It just reads a lot nicer on the edges, because you can see the edges as the light refracts differently through that part of the glass. So anyway, especially if I'm making glass railing or something that has butt joints in it or something like that, I usually give it a thickness and leave the refraction here at 1.6. It reads much nicer. But enough about that. So refraction, pretty straightforward. Usually I use the Effect Shadows button. What that does is it just allows direct light to travel through the glass. So especially if you're doing an interior or something and you have windows to the exterior, you definitely want this on so that the direct light of the sunlight can shine right through those windows. So that's what that does. An important setting also is this one here. If you're doing architectural renderings like I do a lot, and especially for interiors again, you want this to affect at least the color in alpha, so that when you render out an alpha channel, the alpha channel is reading through the glass. If you have it on only color, then your alpha channel will be white in that area instead of black like it needs to be. And I'll usually put it to all channels, so that if I have other render channels, they're also going through that glass instead of stopping at the glass. So that's an important thing to remember about that. And that's really all there is to making a nice glass. I would recommend making one of these, saving it into a material library somewhere, because it gets annoying to make this fall off map over and over. And if you're used to using Mental Ray, you might know that that fall off is kind of built into the reflection in Mental Ray, which is kind of nice, but in V-Ray you can just pop it in there too. And again, you could put all sorts of different maps to give those interesting looks. Let's take a look at an example of that. If we go into the refraction map and put it as maybe a smoke or something, maybe a stucco. I don't know, it doesn't matter. Let me mess with that for a second. Okay, I put that stucco map onto here and just mapped it, made a tile 4 times so we can see it a little bit. So let's render out that glass and see what it looks like. Okay, I actually ended up replacing the stucco map I had on here with a smoke map, which just kind of goes in and out from black to white, black to white. So there's kind of a smoky refraction on there right now. Anyway, that's what the glass looks like. And you can see that distortion I was talking about with your refraction set like that. It doesn't actually look that good on this sphere, so maybe you'll have to adjust it. Like I said, I was talking specifically about windows with thickness. If we set this to 1.01, let's take a look at what that looks like. Let's close that. See, that removes the distortion. You can see that that smoke map right here. There's parts that are less refractive and just reflecting. You can see that nice fall-off map. There's a big plane light over here, so you can see as it goes around this corner, it's getting very reflective and showing that plane light very clearly there. So that's a basic glass. Let's look Now at one last material, do some subsurface scattering stuff, just basic. So if we take this glass here and rename it, and then just let's get rid of our smoke map on there. And for subsurface scattering, to make kind of I use this mostly for making things like frosted glass, or things like acrylic materials, stuff like that, for architectural purposes. But the way you do that is to just turn down the glossiness of the refraction. So if you set this to 0.4 right now, you'd see, and this is something that kills your render times, big time. V-Ray is a fast program, but this is probably one of the things that slows it down more than anything else. And this computer is not very fast either, so. Anyway, that looks kind of funky, but that is a frosted glass. One thing to keep in mind with frosted glass is to get it to look nice, you got to put your settings pretty high, and they do take a long time. Like in actuality, to make a nice rendering, you want to put this maybe around something like 30. One other option is to use interpolation, which speeds things up significantly but makes it look pretty blotchy. But you can turn on interpolation and turn this up to more like 30 or something, and that's still going to be faster than if you had interpolation turned off and you were rendering it at 8. And I don't know if it'll be faster, but the quality compared to the speed will be a lot better. You don't ever want to put this on for animations though, because then you'll just have kind of a noisy glossiness dancing around, you know, from frame to frame. So you don't ever want to use it there, but on stills you can get away with it. It's just kind of cheating the subsurface scattering a little bit. Let's give this subsurface scattering some color here. And then we'll see what this is going to look like as that light travels through it. Actually, I'm going to set this refraction a little higher so we can see better. And I have no idea what this is going to look like, but we'll see. Okay, that's what that material looks like when it's rendered. Pretty funky, but you can see that it's showing that light rod going right through there. This weird blotchiness is from that interpolation that we turned on. If I had that turned off right now, then this would look really noisy. So it's kind of a trade-off you make. You could get away pretty easily with setting this something higher, like 50, or you could turn it off. Set this to about 16, and it'll be a little noisy, and it'll take a bit of a hit in your render time. It'll look nicer, more accurate. You can see there's quite a bit of noise there. But that's how you make things like frosted glass. You can see that it's kind of like a frosty looking little marble there. And I think I'd probably, let's turn down the reflection, the highlight on that, to make it look a little more glossy on the surface. More like that. And then we can just turn down that reflective map altogether, because if frosted glass isn't going to reflect so much. Yeah, that actually looks pretty nice right there. So that's a nice glass material that's using some basic subsurface scattering qualities. Of course, there's other settings you can do for that. There's these translucency settings, which I'm not going to go into here, but you can make wax-looking materials, water-looking materials. One important thing to remember for for the refraction settings here in the V-Ray materials is these fog colors. You can take this fog color, set it to something like that, and you can see what that did to my material. Made it foggy, and it made it much more like this color. You can turn this down to something like 0.01, and you can see it's taking a long time to even regenerate because this stuff is pretty labor intensive for V-Ray or any rendering program. So now you can see you can get a totally different look there. That's with, let's see if we can go down to 0.001. Yeah. So now the fog. So what's happening is this fog color is getting applied more and more as the material gets further and further away from the surface of the sphere. So as you look through a thick part of the sphere, then it's going to be the foggiest. And you can get all sorts of different results using these. The combination of refractivity, refractive color, glossiness, fog multiplier. The saturation of that fog has a big effect on how it's going to look. I use things like this for pool water and stuff like that sometimes. So you can see there's all sorts of possibilities there, and I would suggest going to there's some websites, and there's even some websites or there's even some links posted on FreeCG that that show all these, that just lay out a bunch of different images that show each of these settings adjusted a little bit, and then show another image for each adjustment, just so you can kind of get a feel for where you want your settings to be at. So I would definitely recommend doing that. But let's see, we'll render all the materials together, and then that'll be it.